Now, I must warn you, I had a big spiel, a big joke about femto, feminism, blah, blah. It wasn't as funny as I thought, so I've just deleted it. This is the review of the BetaFPV Femto 20. Now, this is a drone that essentially is going to close that gap between budget analog drones and potentially maybe one-day kits and budget digital drones, because the DJI 04 Lite, if you like, is so cheap and so light that it is a genuine contender to analog, in my opinion. Now, sure, it's never going to replace it for certain hardcore situations. There's always going to be people that prefer analog to having crisp digital vision for some reason, but hey ho, we digress. It comes in two variants. So currently it only comes with ELRS as the receiver, which I think brilliant. I don't have an issue with that. I think that's the best protocol out there. You can have it with or without the 04 Lite installed. Now, from a UK point of view, it's about 80 quid, 80 pounds without the 04 Lite, or 180 with the 04 Lite. Now, the 04 Lite over here costs us 100 quid. So you're not saving anything by buying it and then putting your own in. Now, if you've got a surplus of them, obviously that's a completely different story, of course. But ultimately, you're not saving anything, so you might as well just get the one that's included with it. Now, the one I was sent didn't have an 04 Lite, so I'm going to go through the process of actually installing it. Now, it is a little bit fiddly, so again, I'd probably recommend getting somebody else to do it for you, especially if it's not going to cost you any extra. It's not a horrendous process, but it is just a little bit on the fiddly side. And then we'll go to some flight footage. We'll have some thoughts about it. We'll take it from there. There is a little bit of a problem with it, but overall, I think that you guys are going to enjoy this one. Let's go. So let's get the first job out of the way, and let's get this 04 Lite installed. The first thing you need to do is open all the bags, and you're going to need to get the 4 O-rings. Place the canopy upside down, and then there's 4 protruding pieces of plastic. And all you need to do is place the 4 O-rings just over those pieces of protruding plastic. Then you get your 04 Lite, make sure you've removed any other grommets that you might have had in there in the past, and then just push it down. Simple as that. Then what you're going to need to do, once you've pushed it down in a way that it's all sort of equal and nice and flat, is get the other sort of sandwich plate almost, and just sandwich it all together. Now, in the kit, there are 4 self-tapping screws. They're completely different than all of the other nuts and bolts and things that you've got, because they're the only screws that need an actual Phillips head screwdriver. So find the Phillips screwdriver, and then basically just screw them in to the 4 corresponding holes. And because they are self-tapping screws, they're very easy to screw in. The screwdriver, I think, was included in the kit from memory. I do apologize. I'm pretty sure it is. It's dead simple, dead straightforward. I'm sure anybody can screw a screw into a hole. I'm sure that somebody will leave a comment down below telling me that's just something inappropriate. But anyway, simple as that. Now, that's the easy part done. That's the BetaFPV also do include a smaller antenna, but because I haven't used this 04 Lite as much as I'd like to, I'm going to leave the original antenna on just to see a bit more information that I can garner from the range and the penetration, etc. But there is a smaller one included in the kit if you're worried about it getting snarled up. To be fair, I've done about 10-15 flights with this thing without any problems at all. So, and I've crashed it lots in the house, etc. So you're not really going to have any sort of problems with it, but you know, just so you know. Now, let's move on to the more difficult part. So you're going to need to collect up these weird looking rubberized things. They've got sort of 2 holes at the side and then 1 hole through the middle at a different angle. And then you'll also need these 2 injected molded plastic parts. The one that's got a cutout in a circle will go over the front of your 04 camera. If you look at my 04 camera here on screen now, you can actually see that I've got the DJI 04 housing that comes with it. You need to take that off because this is going to replace your whole camera setup. Okay, so this is how you need to place the rubber grommets through this particular part. So you have them sort of at an angle almost, and what you're going to do is you're going to push them up to the back of where the camera sits in, and they're going to sort of hang off each other and just create like that extra layer of vibration reduction. It's quite an ingenious design actually, but it is a little bit tricky and a little bit fiddly to do. So you can see there, the top of the bottom of the camera, I've got those 4 sort of sticky out bits, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to mount this other part onto the back of that. The way we're going to mount it onto the back is we're going to use the bottom holes, if you can see, of those weird little rubber things. I don't even know what you would call them. You wouldn't call them grommets. I'm not sure what you would call them. Just weird rubber things, I think is the best way of describing them. Now, it's really, really easy when you know how, but it does take a little bit of working out. So it sort of goes in with the back facing out. Obviously, makes perfect sense, doesn't it, when you say it like that? But it's not immediately obvious. And it just takes a little bit of fiddling with. And then you push it all the way in. I don't think I actually do it on the first time. I think I may have to just skip the video a second. Okay, so I've put it all together to show you exactly how it goes. You can see what I was trying to do. Basically, both parts go together, the grommets go together, and then the whole thing sits in midair, sort of attached to those rubberized bits to add that extra little bit of stabilization, if you like. The next part is adding the rubber grommets to the frame itself. We've all done that. I'm not going to show that, so let's move on to having them installed. Sorry, the one thing I did forget to mention with regards to putting the camera together, once you've added both parts together, you then just screw it into the front of the frame like you would any camera. Sorry, it made perfect sense to me at the time, so I didn't think to record it, but I thought I'd just mention it. So what you need now is these 4 longer bolts. There's 5 in the pack. That's a great thing with BetaFPV. They do tend to include an extra part of each one. You need to get all 4 of them, and then you need to get your completed camera cage with your 04 camera on its grommets, and obviously your 04 Lite screwed in with those self-tapping screws. If you've changed the antenna, you've changed the antenna. Brilliant. Now, you need to make sure you install it the right way around. Obviously, the right way around is the battery lead is at the back, so your camera is going to need to go in the opposite side. So as we look in here, the camera will go facing outwards on the left-hand side of the quad. Okay, so your first job now is going to be to grab this cable. This is your 04 power cable and data cable. This is going to transfer the image to your camera and to your goggles, etc. And you just need to make sure that the pins line up. So if the pins in the cable are at the top, then the pins in the hole need to be at the top as well. So just make sure you do that. Tuck in the little wire at the front, and then it's just a case of lining up the 4 holes, getting those 4 longer bolts, and then just screwing those bolts down. I just moved the antenna out of the way here. This part, again, this part's really simple and really straightforward. It's just a case of lining it up. I actually use the included Allen wrench just to show you guys. Although I'd normally use my own tools, I'm trying to, with this particular video, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sort of take you through the process as you would receive it, as maybe a newbie would receive it. You're not necessarily going to have all the tools available to you, and this is what the tools that were provided. So they're not ideal tools, but they get the job done, as you eventually see after a little bit of fumbling there. Eventually, soon, anytime now. Take time, quads. Come on, chop chop. So my advice is put one in one corner and then go to the other corner. Don't tighten them up until all 4 are in. So just put them hand tight essentially. And then once all 4 are in, then you can tighten them down. And I'd go from diagonal corner to diagonal corner. It spreads the weight a little bit more evenly as you're screwing them down. Don't over tighten them. You don't need to go wild here. It only weighs 8 grams after all. And you have then successfully installed your 04 Lite into your Pavo Femto. Easy as that. That camera system is a little bit challenging, I've got to be honest. It's a bit of a nightmare. So let's take a look now at Betaflight and some things that we need to do with the controller and some things we need to do within Betaflight. So the next job on your list is to power up the quad, connect it to either a PC or an Android phone with the adapter provided. That'll provide power to the receiver. Go into your, turn on your radio and then go into Betaflight on your device. You need to do this relatively quickly within each other. So my advice is go to your ELRS page on your radio and then scroll down to where it says bind. Don't press it just yet, because the bind phrase or the bind command only lasts so long. Then in Betaflight, hit bind receiver and then hit bind on the controller or transmitter.
Telemetry connected.
And you have successfully bound your Pavo 20 Femto. My advice now is to head into the receiver segment and set up your arming switch. If you don't know which one it is, you can set it to auto and then just flick the switch that you want. Make sure the yellow horizontal line matches with the vertical line for when you want it to be armed. You can then set up angle mode. I'm going to remove horizon mode. We've got beeper and we've also got flip over after crash, which is turtle mode. Again, if you don't know which one's which, all you need to do is just press a button and it will show you which one is which, just to confirm that it's in the right position, but also to confirm that you're using the right switch. Now, it's really important if you are a newbie to make sure that you have flip over after crash enabled, but also be aware not to use it in too long of a grass situation because you can burn the motors out. So do use it sparingly and cautiously. Ignore the call outs on my radio because they are set up for a different type of quad. So the actual voices don't make sense, and I'm not particularly that bothered that I'm going to change them for each one. That's just me being lazy. I should do really. But yeah, I would advise you to make sure you have turtle mode on, especially as a newbie, but just be aware if it doesn't instantly flip over, you're going to have to do the walk of shame and go and pick it up just to avoid burning those motors out. I will show you later on in some flight footage that actually the turtle mode does work really, really well. Now, we've set up our arming switches. We know that each one of our controllers is the correct one. So we've done our work there. What I'd recommend we do now is we take a look at everything else in Betaflight. And because we have turned off our radio, I've moved the Betaflight just to the middle so it's easy to see. Now, this is the base tune as given by BetaFPV, and this is the base rates. The first thing I'd recommend is that you change the sensitivity from the center of the stick to 10, just to really deaden the center of that. And then I'm going to increase just slightly, not massively, because this isn't a quad that's designed to be flown necessarily like a 5-inch, but I'll increase it slightly. There is quite a lot of expo on this, and just out of curiosity, I'm going to leave it on there just to see how it flies. I'm not going to touch anything else, but I am going to go and have a quick nosy around and just make sure everything else is set up how I would like it to be done. So for that, we're going to need to go into the setup page. Now, at this point, I get a bit confused because I can't see OSD, which suggests that it's been flashed without an OSD. So I go through and I can see that MSP has been set up, arming degrees as 180 has been set up. If we scroll down, air mode is turned on, but there is no option for an OSD. Now, this was before I'd flown it. So I thought, oh, that's a bit of a strange one. Now, normally what I would do in a situation where I've received a quad like this for myself is I would just sort it out. I'd just reflash Betaflight, deal with it, you know, and away you go. But I wanted to show you guys, just in case you receive yours like this, don't panic too much. I will put a video up of how to fix it, but you are going to have to reflash Betaflight and save all your settings before you do that. Now, I'm not going to do that on this video. This is probably just one of those unfortunate errors from the factory. It was sent just before Chinese New Year. They were incredibly busy. But if you do receive yours like that, then do let me know in the comments down below and I'll be able to help you out with a video fairly shortly showing you how to resolve it. But yeah, that does actually mean that we have no OSD for when we go flying, which is going to be a little bit of a problem. Okay, so now the drone is all together and set up, I can give you some initial impressions as to how I feel about it. It weighs 80 grams with a 550 mAh 2S Lava LiHV battery. That's the one that they recommend. That's probably going to be the best physical fit for the cage. It doesn't have one of the cages that is expandable and stretchable like some of the other drones do. It is molded plastic. That offers better protection. I like that, but it does mean that it doesn't offer the same range of flexibility when it comes to, you know, forcing in a battery that's a little bit larger or having something in that's a bit smaller. You could put something in smaller and pad out the space, don't get me wrong. A little bit disappointed with the issues I faced within Betaflight. It's not something that I can resolve nice and easily. It's not a massive problem. It's just a shame. It's just, I'm not going to go too hard on them. It's just one of those things. The camera system, sort of standoff or dampening system, if you like, is quite ingenious. I like how they've done it. My only complaint with it really is it is a little bit fiddly to put together. It's not impossible. It's not too much of a challenge that most people will find it difficult, but it is quite fiddly. Follow sort of the visuals that I've put up on the screen and you should be able to get it together without too much of a problem. Now, once it is together, it provides great dampening. I've not had any vibration issues. I have noticed other people who fly in colder countries are saying that it's freezing up because of it's rubber based and obviously there's moisture in the air when it's freezing. We haven't had any freezing temperatures in the UK since I've received this, so I can't comment on that, but that is something that I will keep a note of. And we are due apparently to get some snow potentially this weekend. So if that happens, I will take it out and see if I can make it freeze up. It'll be interesting to see if that actually happens or not. But it's a really striking looking quad. It weighs just 80 grams with the battery. I think it's about 50 something grams without. It's relatively quiet. I haven't been able to manage to actually physically measure the noise just yet, I'm afraid. I will do that. I've got a big plan for lots of quads to measure and compare noise, but I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. It's quite striking. We've got the newest all-in-one from BetaFPV, so the top of the tree technology from them there. We've got ELRS included. First impressions are the motors look really nice. We've got really nice solder joints there, as we can see. The motors 1102s. It's 14,000 kV or 24,000 kV. I'm not 100% sure. I'll double check. Really, really well put together. I've got to be honest. You know, it's 14,000 kV, 1102, sorry. Really well put together. Really nice quad. It's quite striking. It is very similar to a Pavo Pico, but obviously you're going to get that 04 goodness, and you're also hopefully going to get the bonus of it being lighter. But ultimately, there's only one way we're going to find out if that's the case, isn't it? And that's to go and fly it. Let's go. Cause your night is going to Bilbao. Cause your night is going to Bilbao. So it is quite a windy day. We are getting buffeted a little bit by the wind. Nothing major. It does feel like it's got plenty of power. In fact, let's try that again. Yeah. It's a little bit slower than I'm used to, so the 04, I think, in good lighting like this, and obviously the better the lighting gets, as in sunshine, as in the thing we don't have in the UK, and I think the 04 standard is just brilliant. To offer such good quality at such limited weight is just really, really good. Now, for some reason, and I'm going to guess that this is just an error rather than a deliberate design choice, but I don't have an OSD in my build of Betaflight. that was shipped to me by BetaFPV. So I don't know exactly how long, well, I know how long I've been flying for, 1 minute and 50 seconds. What I don't know, it is recording, what I don't know is what the voltage etc is at. Now I will get, or I should get a warning, I don't actually know if I will. So it's a bit of a bizarre one. Like I say, I assume it's not a design choice, I assume it was an error when the person built the version and they left out OSD. I've got some bird friends chilling with me here, as you can probably hear in the background. It's a little bit susceptible to that side wind, as you can see there, but nothing major. Right, we're on 2 minutes and 49 seconds. I have no idea what voltage I'm on, so. And I do get a land now low battery.
Timer 1 elapsed.
So, and there's my bird friends there that was making all that racket, having a bit of a ruckus with each other, I think. Okay, so that was the maiden flight done. Now I have got a land now error because it mustn't be set up in Betaflight to 4.35 volts. So that's going to cause a real issue with knowing exactly what I've got. Motors were lovely and cool, so the tune seems to be decent. Better be careful that it's not going to have all the power I'm expecting, is it? And that was a tree.
Turtle mode on. Armed.
Okay, we're back and we are now recording again. I don't want to disarm in the field because it's quite boggy. You can feel that wind as it hits me. I can actually see it in the feed of the camera. Now, I can't fly for more than really a minute here because I don't have an OSD telling me what battery I've got left. But I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I am a feminist as of now. I am convert. Thank you, BetaFPV. You have made me a feminist. It's no slouch. Oof, gosh, that was a slouch. Okay, I'm going to have to bring the feminist home. Purely because I don't know how much battery I've got left, and the warnings are not effective because we obviously started on 4.35 and it's not set up for that. So not ideally set up by BetaFPV. Criticise them too much about because it's something that we can easily fix ourselves, isn't it? A little bit of messing in Betaflight, whatever you want to call it, and we're good to go. Right, let's land. Peace. So unperturbed by these errors, we head out on another day at another location to see how it will cope with a nasty side wind. Now, in a minute, you'll see these flags are quite blowy, for want of a better word. Now, you'll see I initially try and go through here and fail quite badly because the side wind just hits me. But it's okay because I think, well, I'll give it a go again and we'll try again in a second. And we do, and we successfully go through there in a short while. There is a gentleman at the other side of the car park. I don't know if you can see him there. He tends to be the local, very excitable, drunken person at 9 o'clock in the morning, which does make things just a wee bit difficult at times. I've got some nice gentlemen over there on the left-hand side. One of those is also a drone flyer, and we had a good chat afterwards. But you can see, look, we gain altitude without any issues at all. Just lovely and drifting up into the air. Like I say, it is quite windy, and you'll see that in a second. That flagpole in front of us was a good indicator of it. But it's actually lovely and smooth. For a 2S, it's actually quite crazy just how powerful it is. And not only powerful, but responsive as well. I think this is where we managed to hit all of them in a row. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Like I say, it is a little bit on the windy side. And if you look at the flagpole in front of you, no, not just yet. Bear with me. Let's go back through them and try it again. So it's nice and controlled. We can now do a cheeky little flip and just head through some of these trees. Just sort of see how maneuverable it is through these trees, and it's lovely, not a problem. Tracks really, really nicely. There's the gentleman there, look, shouting it into the air. He's arguing with nobody, apparently, screaming and shouting. Not at me, I hasten to add. He was doing this before I'd arrived. Go around this tree now. And it's just a really nice, relaxed, gentle quad that isn't going to produce any surprises. It's not going to make you think, oh God, I didn't expect it to do that. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a lovely, responsive, smooth, enjoyable budget quad. And I think BetaFPV have done a really great job with it, minus the faults that I've already raised. But again, I think we go through the tree here. It's just for 80 quid or $100, whatever the price is wherever you live. For the price, it's just a really nice quad to fly. And the other thing is, you'll notice flying around here, there is quite a few cars and people. Nobody paid any attention to it. Literally nobody paid any. The spotter did, obviously, but nobody else paid any. So stepping back into the cockpit for one final flight of this review, we just decided to throw it around the car park a little bit faster this time. We're going to go into the area over here where it's a little bit more closed off. Just be careful of that bird above us. And then we've got a little bit more of a tighter area we're not going to do anything crazy. Because at the end of the day, what we didn't want to do is damage it before we'd done the review. So just nice and relaxed and calm and underneath the fence. And I think we'll go through another fence in a minute. As you can see, that pigeon didn't particularly want to stick around. But generally speaking, it's not the quietest quad in the world, but it's a push, a Cinewhoop. It's going to create a bit of noise. But it's quiet. And it's smooth and it's responsive. And I think the flight footage probably speaks for itself. Now, I am about to fly through... Oh, hello, pigeon. I'm about to fly through a sign here. My only words of advice to anybody who's used to flying the 03 or potentially analog is that with the 04 Lite, your field of view is obviously a lot more reduced. It's not as wide as it is with all the other cameras. And you can probably notice and tell that from what we're doing here today. Don't ascend there, quads, because there's a huge swarm of birds that will instantly take you out of the sky. Let's ascend here, said the spotter. And away we go. You can see we got a little bit pushed there by the wind. If you look at this flagpole here, the one directly in front of us, it's flapping away quite flappily. So, and again, this is the other side of the ice cream parlour. I just thought I'd pop in and say hello to my old friend there. Good fella. And I think we may even go through some of these again. Now, unfortunately, this flight was cut a little bit short in a second because my controller batteries decided to die, which is a bit of a shame, really. Let's head back into the warm studio and find out what we really think about it. So we come to the part of the video where we answer the eternal question of, do I think you should buy it? And as always with these things, I think the answer is going to be a maybe. You've got a really well put together plastic molded, injection molded and carbon fiber frame. It's incredibly strong. I've crashed it a few times. There's zero damage on it whatsoever. It's really strong. It's really tough. It's ideal for newbies. It only weighs 80 grams, so you can fly it around people. Again, ideal for newbies if they want to learn in a park or maybe where they live or just in places that are a bit more accessible to people where they can have other people with them, full support. So there's that. I think that's a really good thing. The 04 Lite produces really good footage outside, I think. The biggest issue is what we need is the 04 Lite version 2, which offers us a wider field of view. That's just the way that DJI work. They've released this product. It's almost perfect. We're going to get you on board for a year, maybe 18 months. And then in that time, we're going to release another one, which fixes all of the other things that should have been fixed with the first one. I can't say too much bad about DJI at the minute because My Mavic 3 Pro unfortunately developed a fault and was out of warranty and no longer had Care Refresh active on it. Like an idiot, I'd let it lapse. And actually, DJI replaced it free of charge for me this week. So I can't say too much bad about them. But as a business, they know exactly what they're doing and how to nickel and dime the customer. It's just the way it is. That's the way the world is these days. So they will release another version later on down the line, which will have that wider angle that we're all used to. It doesn't mean that I think it's bad. It's more than flyable. It's more than usable. You just need to be aware that it's different than what you might be used to. If I can just really briefly pause the video here for 1 second to thank our members. Han Solo, Doper FPV, Shaky FPV 21, Mark Duplex, Harry M Photography, JR FPV, James the Third of Boston, Phil Anderson, Not Here, Dizzy FPV, Only Drones, and of course, Barry Morgan FPV. It's $1.99 a month to join them on the members bench, and you will get your name shouted out in every one of these videos. If I haven't earned that from you yet, that's absolutely fine. Please do hit that notification bell to be notified every time we upload a new video. Now, as part of this community spotlight, I'm going to highlight 3 comments from the last review that I think are worthy of further discussion. We've got Chris Croft. I have a 4-inch Apex Micro, currently no VTX installed, and it was pretty quiet. The only reason I pre-built as I had a spare set of 2203 motors. I don't understand why the iFlight is so loud. Chris, I think you and everybody else out there is a bit confused as to exactly why it's putting out so much noise. I've got other different types of 4-inch quads, none of which make a quarter of the racket that the iFlight does. It's a really strange one. Great drone to fly, don't get me wrong, but it is a really strange one. Thanks for your comment, Chris. Barry Morgan FPV. It's a bit of an oddball, isn't it? It's enormous fun, and I imagine ripping around a wide open countryside would be great, but it always has that why hanging over it. And Barry's absolutely right, because if you was going to go to a wide open countryside, what would you take with you, Barry? You'd take a 5-inch, wouldn't you? And that's the problem with it. Like, it's incredible fun, and it's a quad that I really love, and I love the stealth look of it. But why? Difficult one. Thanks for your comment, Barry. Quadding fun. Not sure where to put it. I think a 5-inch is king for park ripping. Again, you're absolutely right. The only thing that I can think what iFlight have done, and the reason why iFlight have done it, is to produce something virtually as good as the Nazgul, but that's a little bit cheaper. That's the only reason I can see why they've done it. Because weight and size wise, you're just not gaining anything, and then noise wise, you're producing more of a racket than with a 5-inch. Anyway, that's a community spotlight done for this week. Let's finish up the rest of this video. So it's important to say the comments that I made about the DJI O4 do not reflect on BetaFPV or the quality of the quad that they provided. They provided a great camera mount to isolate as many of those vibrations as possible. A little bit fiddly, but once it's together, it's fantastic. They've provided a great quad that is a mix of injected molded plastic and carbon fiber. The motors are beautiful, incredibly powerful for a 2S. Got a really nice flight controller in there as well. It looks really nice, and it flies incredibly well as well. So overall, I'm going to say this is probably a drone that you are going to want to buy in a specific circumstance. It costs £85 or £185 if you get the O4 included with it. And ultimately, I think where we're going with this is a budget Pavo 20, or this is a more exclusive Pavo Pico almost. Sort of sits in between the two of those, and it produces great footage when the weather allows. It's nice and quiet, it's nice and smooth. It's probably a brilliant quad to learn, and I think I get asked this question maybe 100 times a day. What should I buy to start with? And I think the Pavo Femto, sorry, is probably going to be one of those quads that I would advise people to get. Now, the only issue there is going to be the cost of the goggles. But ultimately, if you're going to get into FPV, I think in 2025, it's probably best to advise people not to go the analog route. Sure, there's great kits like the Cetus X kit, other kits from other manufacturers, the Aquila kit from BetaFPV as well. There are analog kits out there, but I think ultimately when you're looking at, it's such now a small gap between digital and analog when it comes to the cost. I think ultimately this is probably going to be the route that I would advise most people to go down if they're going to consider to be getting serious into it. And hopefully we can get some cheaper options in goggles. Probably not. But yeah, ultimately it's a fun quad, it's a quiet quad, it's a light quad, it's really, really strong, and it's a definite from me. It's one that I'm not going to dismantle after I finish this review. I'm going to keep it on my wall, and I'm going to fly it, and I'm going to enjoy it. So from my point of view, yeah, absolutely, it's something that I would add to your considered list. And speaking of your considered list, check this video in the end screen now to consider something for your list.